Hello, cherished viewers, lovers of aviation history, aviation enthusiasts, and all of you out there. And welcome to yet another series in the Date with the Aero Archives. That's Dancing with the Aero Daredevils. And the spotlight is going to be on Jorge Antonio Chavez. People call him Jorge, as he said in Spanish, Jorge Antonio Chavez. What is it about Jorge Antonio Chavez that is kind of bringing him to the spotlight or into the Hall of Fame of the Aero Daredevils? Don't forget to comment, like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. And now is the time to tell a friend, to tell another friend, to tell another friend that Captain Amo is here with yet another banger. The objectives of today's lessons, we are continuing to appreciate the Wright brothers, what they did on 17th December 1903, and how it opened the floodgate to the decade of the Aero Daredevils. We're going to look at a brief bio of Jorge Chavez. Then we're going to look at the main event that is setting the criteria to admit him into the Hall of Aero Daredevils. So we start right away. Born on 13 June 1887 in Paris to Peruvian parents. His parents migrated, settled in France. Then he was brought up in France. He was a good athlete in almost anything you can think of: rugby, football, sports. He was also a good cyclist, a motor racer, and all the qualities that you have with an athlete. His first contact with aviation when he had his pilot license in 1910, and in those days we were competing for altitude, speed, and distance. He broke a few records, about 2 records of flying up to 5,405 feet in Blackpool, England, and also later broke his own record during that year and did 8,700 feet in Issy, France. Those were his few things with aviation. You know, just the moment that he received his pilot license, he started getting into all these feats because that was what was at the time. Today, if someone gets his flying license, remember, he's only going there, get his license or get her license and start with an airline. In those days, none of those things. You get your license, then now you are competing or you are outdoing a previous Aero Daredevil. That was what it was at that time. Then there was a prize, an award of $1,000, which translates almost to $25,000 in today's economy, adjusted for inflation. There was $1,000 for anyone who could fly from Brig, Switzerland to Domodossola in Italy, and he competed for it. Okay, so on this fateful day of September 19, he took off, and though the whole thing seemed absurd, why would somebody go and venture in stuff like this? The Alps, as you may know from European geography, high peak mountains, always covered with snow, clouds, fog, and all these things. Why would somebody want to do something like this? But hey, we also have people who say, you know what, I really want to outdo what the Wright brothers did and their predecessors. So he set out for it on September 19th that same year. But truly, that day, the mountain was covered with thick fog, and he could not see the peaks of so many of the mountain tops that he wanted to fly over. So he thought it wise to do what we call today an air return back to base and wait for weather to improve. 4 days later, the weather improved. That's 23rd September, so he set out. Now, if I'm to go through the details of what he did, we might digress from Aero Daredevils and talk about mountain waves and geography and the winds and everything. So I'm going to summarize it. How he got his motor to climb up. Remember, you have to climb up and scale the mountains first before you can see forward and do this journey, even though it was only 75-mile journey. 75 mile will equate to something like about 140 kilometers, almost a distance between Accra and Cape Coast, something of that nature. That was the journey he was supposed to do, but the real challenge was to scale over the mountains and always keep an altitude over the mountains so that he could see forward. But that didn't come cheap. It was no mean task. Okay, sometimes he had to circle as he was climbing up to look out for visual cues and everything. And it was through days of treacherous wind. So even though the first day he did an air return due to clouds over the mountain tops, the day he went, yes, admittedly, the sun was shining and everything, but the winds, the treacherous winds were still present. And we have, when you fly in between certain parts of the mountain, you also have some air trying to draw you down, especially when you have because of the way the winds blow over the mountains. Like I said, I don't want to delve deep into it, otherwise we'll digress. But it was not an easy feat for him to scale up to the top of the mountains, for him to see forward and progress his 75-mile journey. It was not easy. winds were battling him. Apart from the fact that they were trying to dip him down with the aircraft, they were also trying to push him off course and everything, and he really needed more visibility to keep himself on track and everything. It was a torturous thing, and after about an hour or so, just when he was able to be on the other side of the Alps, he started to make a descent to his destination, make a descent. Unfortunately, 30 feet into the ground, his engine quit on him. So that made him plummet into the ground almost like a ton of bricks. That ejected him also out of the aircraft, and he fell down like somebody just falling up on the top of a building. That material moment, he had a lot of injuries and he could not speak anymore. 4 days later, he passed on. He is still noted for so many things. He's inspired so many people, especially the Peruvian people. So today, the Peruvian people, the capital Lima's airport is named after him because they thought that he has brought a lot of inspiration to the Peruvian people. Okay, so if you go in and out of Peru, that is through Lima Airport, you will always see his name, Jorge Antonio Chavez. Also, the departure point, that is Brugg in Switzerland to Domo d'Ossola in Italy, have lots of home to a lot of monuments on Jorge Chavez for what he did. Even though he died 4 days later and everything, he was able to register, you know, his name in the Hall of Aero Daredevils because at least he started his journey, completed it. That's how he crossed the Alps. Now, the question is, why is he an Aero Daredevil? Why? Do remember, all along, we've been discussing Aero Daredevils as people who went out on an operation with no hindsight, no foresight, and no insight. No one had crossed the Alps before this competition. Today is so seamless. So many flights over Europe crisscrossing each other from maybe Switzerland to France, back and forth to Italy, and so many other flights going back and forth over the Alps without even thought. It's so seamless. Some are for military purposes, some are for agricultural purposes, some are on commercial flight purposes, charters, and we are just crisscrossing the Alps. But we have to give that credence to Jorge Chavez because it was a venture. Even at the time of the competition, the money was not. Though being so good in those days, it was still not enough to attract more people. Not because the money looked very small. It was never small. But to go over the Alps, people were just trying to, how can I just don't see how I can fly an aeroplane over these mountains. We're always covered with snow, ice, and all sorts of winds. People just thought, you know what, I don't need the price. I think I'll stay in my home. But this guy said, no, I will venture. Even one would have thought that after the first day that he did the air return, he would have said, okay, you know, it's not really worth it. But guess what? 4 days later, he went. So, one, he had no hindsight. No one had gone before him. And obviously, if you have no hindsight, you don't see the good, the bad, and the other side of that event to say, okay, you know what? This is what can happen to me when I go. That's foresight. Foresight is anticipating what can go wrong or what can go right. And insight is preparing yourself with the hindsight you've benefited from and the foresight that you have. Then you now prepare yourselves. Now, do we have manuals? So if you look on your screen on the slideshow, there's a map between these 2 points. But today, trust me, if anyone is flying these Alps, they are not doing it like the way Jorge Chavez did. Are you okay? What they are now doing is that we go to an airport, then you go to the operational control office. Weather is given to you, and I mean when I say weather, it's not just a matter of looking out and seeing what's happening, but we have what you call forecast. Some forecasts last for 24 hours, some are 9 hours, and it tells you everything about clouds, winds, temperatures, visibilities, you know, precipitation, everything you need to know, and what your limits are. At the operational office, you know everything of those and what your limits are, and whether the flight could go at that appointed time, delay, or you either cancel it or reschedule it. All these insights we have today was based on the first guy, that's Jorge Chavez, and we say thanks to him. He never had hindsight, foresight, and insight. We have a lot of it. Hey, but it doesn't mean flying is easy. There are so many things we have to understand. There are even regulations which even tell us how high we should fly over a mountain, for example, a crowded area in a city, a non-mountainous terrain, how high we should keep our, our vertical distance over that obstacle. Today we have all these regulations and we have manuals to tell us how to do it. We have aircraft manuals to let us know whether we can even fly over it. And if you go through what you call the turbulence, because even though so many people do not understand why, in fact, so many people still cannot explain why Chavez died as his plane dropped. Some people think that it's because of the stress of the turbulence, that, whenever an aircraft goes through turbulence, the skin of the aircraft goes through a lot of stress, trying to compress itself and expand itself and everything. And there's a certain limit, which the limit of stress that every aircraft can take as prescribed by the manufacturer. But he never had a manual to tell him what the skin stress is, how long should he be flying the aircraft before he should take it in for an inspection or a check. He had none of those. So it is believed, one theory believes that the aircraft is somersaulted, the other one believes that the aircraft went through a lot of skin stress before it broke apart. All this we do not know, but there's one thing we know, is to give credit to Jorge Chavez for registering his name as the first person, the first to cross the Alps of 75 miles. We give kudos to Jorge Chavez, and thank you all for this journey, Aero Daredevils, and the spotlight that we put on Chavez. And don't forget to spread the word.